and across the ring, ready to go, fighting out of the blue, Won Suk Kim. Introducing our three judges, scoring from ringside. From Canada, Richard Blouin. From the United States, Raul Kais. And from South Korea, Kwon Ho Jung. And our referee in charge, our third man to the ring, joining us from his home in Hungary, Vince Kovat.
The lights feel different in 2026. Brighter, heavier, almost like they carry the weight of history itself. And somehow, against all expectations, Nonito Donaire is walking back into that light again. Not quietly, not for a farewell, but for something massive, a global Netflix fight that has the entire boxing world watching. Millions of eyes, a new generation of fans, and one burning question. Why come back now? Because to understand this moment, you have to go back to a night in Yokohama, Japan. A night that didn't just test a legend, it exposed him in ways no one was ready to admit. That night felt electric from the very beginning. A world title eliminator, a young and dangerous opponent in Riku Masuda, and across the ring stood a man who had already conquered everything. Nonito Donaire, a 4-division world champion with over 2 decades of experience. But from the opening bell, something felt off. Donaire was calm, composed, moving like a veteran who had seen it all, using feints, measuring distance, reading his opponent. Masuda, though, wasn't showing the usual respect you see when fighters face legends. He wasn't hesitant. He wasn't nervous. He was waiting, studying, almost like he knew something the rest of the world didn't. By the second round, the fight began to shift. Masuda's jab started landing clean and sharp again and again, setting a rhythm that Donaire struggled to break. You could see the difference in speed, just slightly at first, but enough to matter. Donaire tried to adjust, tried to find his timing, but it wasn't coming together. For the first time, there was a visible realization on his face. Not fear, but understanding. This wasn't going to be one of those nights where experience alone would carry him through. And that's when the deeper truth started to reveal itself. For years, Donaire's left hook had been one of the most feared weapons in boxing. It had ended fights in seconds, shattered champions, and built his reputation as a global superstar. But what people often forget is that power alone isn't enough. That left hook needed timing, precision, and speed. Against Masuda, he couldn't find the perfect moment. The openings were smaller, the reactions slower, and suddenly that legendary weapon wasn't landing the way it used to. It wasn't gone, but it wasn't the same. As the fight moved into the middle rounds, the damage began to show. Masuda wasn't just winning exchanges, he was controlling the entire pace of the fight. Sharp counters, clean combinations, and constant movement made it difficult for Donaire to keep up. A swelling began to form around his eye, a cut opened up, and it wasn't from one devastating punch but from accumulation. Years of wear and tear, round after round of punishment, all catching up at once. The commentators said something that stuck with everyone watching, that those years don't disappear, they build up, and eventually, they show. Then came the moment where everything changed. Donaire, being the warrior he is, refused to fade quietly. He stepped forward and turned the fight into a war. For a brief moment, it worked. He landed a powerful right hand that shook Masuda, and the crowd erupted. It felt like time had reversed, like the old Donaire had returned for one last flash. But boxing isn't about moments, it's about consistency, and Masuda recovered quickly. The window closed just as fast as it opened. By the 7th round, the fight had reached its breaking point. Masuda landed a clean shot right on the damaged side of Donaire's face, and down he went. It wasn't dramatic, but it was clear. When he stood back up, everything was different. The legs weren't as steady, the reactions weren't as sharp, and the damage was impossible to ignore. He was still dangerous, still throwing, still fighting with heart, but he was no longer in control. And in boxing, that difference means everything. The final round of that fight wasn't about skill anymore, it was about survival. Donaire kept pushing forward because that's who he is, a fighter to his core. But his corner saw what he couldn't. This wasn't just a tough fight, it was a moment where the cost was becoming too high. And then, in a decision that echoed through the arena, the towel came in. The fight was over. Masuda had won, and Donaire walked back to his corner not just defeated, but changed. That night left a silence that was hard to ignore. It wasn't just about losing a fight, it was about facing reality. The speed gap, the accumulated damage, the effects of a 25-year career, all of it had shown up at once. For a while, it felt like the end. Like the final chapter had been written in Yokohama. But legends don't disappear that easily, and now in 2026, Donaire is stepping back into the ring for a fight that could redefine everything. This Netflix event isn't just another bout. It's a global stage, a new era of boxing entertainment, and a chance for Donaire to answer the one question that has followed him since that night. Was that loss the result of decline, or was it simply the wrong opponent at the wrong time? And that question is what makes this comeback so powerful. Because it's not about money, and it's not about fame. It's about closure. What makes this version of Donaire different is that he knows what he's up against. Reports suggest he has changed his approach, focusing more on defense, timing, and efficiency rather than trying to match the speed of younger fighters. He understands that he can't rely on the same physical advantages he once had. But what he does have is experience, something no opponent can replicate. And in boxing, sometimes all it takes is one perfectly timed punch to change everything. But there's also a danger here that no one can ignore. This isn't just a comeback story, it's a risk. Because we've already seen what happens when timing slips, when reflexes slow down, and when a fighter takes one punch too many. That reality hasn't changed. If anything, it's more present than ever. And that's what makes this fight so compelling. You're not just watching a boxer step into the ring, you're watching a man challenge time itself. In 2026, when Nonito Donaire walks into that arena again, he won't be the unstoppable force he once was. But he might be something even more dangerous, a fighter with nothing left to prove and nothing left to lose. The world will be watching, the pressure will be immense, and somewhere between the opening bell and the final round, the truth will reveal itself. Was Yokohama the end of his story, or just the beginning of one final chapter? Because in boxing, legends don't just fade away. They come back, and try to rewrite their ending.